You are about to experience the result of hard work and dedication from the City of Champions, Cleveland's own, 90th's finest. Self-made, hard-working entrepreneurs, unequivocally raw, no holds barred. This is Epiphany Media.
So we already got people joining us on the weird platforms where we won't be able to see names and stuff, but we will work it out. Welcome back to another episode of Epiphany Media, the Epiphany Media podcast.
The Epiphany Media Talking Heads podcast. Is that our new name now?
The Talking Heads, yeah, I like that. I'm Emmanuel. That's Byron, of course. And today we got a guest. Hold on one second. Forgive us. There's a football game going on at the same time, and people are in the chat talking about the football game already. So it's going to be great. So today we got Kellen Fluke. Fluke. Eager, right?
Exactly, Flukiger.
Okay, Flukiger. You want to talk about somebody that a jack of all trades? So we were just talking about how he is a magician, a musician, and produces music. He said he has 13 books and 6 more on the way, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Wow. I watched some of his some kind of conferences. I'm not sure if you were being, I don't know if it's like part of the leadership mentor thing or if you were just speaking at someone else's conference or whatever, but a man of many talents, and we're glad to have him. And as you guys see by the title and the floating behind me, as well as the banner, we want to talk about suicide prevention and awareness. For those of you that don't know, Friday was Worldwide Suicide Prevention and Awareness Day. I know here in America, and I'm assuming in other parts of the world, potentially, I really don't know. But like September 11th, which was yesterday, is a sensitive topic for a lot of people, and a lot of people get really down and depressed around this time of year. Remembering what happened 20 years ago now, which is kind of crazy to say that. So we felt like it would be a good time to talk about this type of thing and maybe help some people who need it, encourage people to get the help that they need if they need it, or to just have a conversation and maybe get some of those thoughts and feelings out. And I feel bad. I put your intro in with the entire intro of the show. We didn't get a nice chance to let people welcome you to the program.
Thank you. I feel very welcome to the program, and the topic is very relevant and timely. I've been through that myself. I mean, you said, multi-talented and all this sort of thing. One of the things I experienced myself was decades of struggling with depression. And when I grew up in that time, it's something you don't talk about. It's like stigma. You suck. You handle your own problems. Nobody talks about that. I even went to a doctor once, and this was recently, like 10 years ago. And this is after I started doing motivational stuff and was on the path of healing after 40 years of talking to nobody. She said, "How can you have depression? You're a motivational speaker." That whole context of, somebody like Robin Williams, all successful and then kills himself. And, that sort of thing happens. It pops up front news for a minute and then everybody jumps up and down and then, slides back into yesterday's news. And so it's very important, timely topic, especially with the pandemic and all the crap going on, causing people to question the opportunity, the future, their value, what's available, et cetera, et cetera. So big deal. It's a depression, anxiety, personal worth, opportunity. All those things are something that's front and center for clients that I work with in my coaching practice and people in general.
Let me ask you this, though. You said it was going on. Well, you said that you were you've been going through this for 40 years, and you said 10 years ago you decided to get help finally.
Yes.
So within that 40 years, like, how did you deal with it? Like,
I did.
what you didn't?
So this is going to sound really, I'm reaching for something. So just a sec. I was raised in a very strict disciplinary sort of home. Today, the kind of discipline that was used would be felony child abuse, and I would have been removed from the home. The thing I took away from that and the beginning of this depression was my early teens from 13 to 53. So that's about the 40 years. How I dealt with it, my own way. Everybody does whatever they do. But I was trying for that 40 years to prove, principally to my mom, who was the inflictor of that sort of stuff, best of intent. She wanted me to be good and everything, but her idea of getting me there was force and violence. I tried to prove that I was okay. And I tried to do it by getting good jobs, by making money. And I thought the more I did, someday, somewhere, somehow I'd get you're okay now. You're good enough. You did it. I never got it. So what ended up happening is I burned through relationships. I was married and divorced 3 times. I ended up in and out of rehab. I had long stints of addictions of different kinds. So how did I deal with it? I'll say very poorly. I managed to be a functioning addict and hold down high-profile jobs. When I wrote this book, Tightrope of Depression, my journey from darkness, despair, and death to light, love, and life, I waited a year to publish it. I wrote it in 2014 and waited till the end of, finished it in 15, waited till the end of 16 to let it out because I was scared to death that the people who knew me as this high-profile, high-powered executive, blah, 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 would read the truth and go, like, what? That kind of thing, because like I was in secret rehabs that nobody, all that crap stuff you see in movies. Yeah, that guy. So I dealt with it very poorly.
That's interesting. And from our experience, like we've had comedians on and like philanthropists and people who are, generally upbeat and happy and positive, yet they seem to all kind of struggle or have struggled at some point in time with some sort of depression, some sort of trauma, how we were talking about even before the show started. That seems to be, I don't want to say the one thing, but seem to be a thing that kind of ties all of these hyper positive people together. Like you mentioned, Robin Williams, another like Marilyn Monroe, and all these people who's deemed successful, yet they, whether it be money or fame or admiration, but yet they are all kind of linked about something inside that is not allowing them to be free, so to speak.
I started a group. I was just mentioned this before we started. I started a group yesterday helping 3 people write books, which is one of the things I do in my coaching practice. And the fellow, 2 ladies and a guy in there, and the fellow told me, I asked them all, like I do in the beginning. It was a 3-hour workshop yesterday afternoon to kick it off. And I asked them about, the reasons for doing what they were doing, writing the book, what they hoped to accomplish, who they wanted to help with it, and what was that about, None of them were fiction. It was all like stories about themselves and the kinds of things you're talking about. And so the guy told me this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then I told him a little bit about my history, stuff that none of them knew and everything. And then when I went back around asking him, because I was teaching about how to tell stories by modeling storytelling as I told stories to him, right? And immediately his response was, oh, well, I didn't tell you anything about, the emotional, the behind the scenes. And this is the key here. It wasn't okay for him to do that until I did. Like he didn't feel like it was okay to bleed on the floor or do whatever, that wasn't okay until we said, oh, it's okay. And I did that by telling stuff and by being open and vulnerable. And so Like I spent 40 years afraid, thinking I'm the problem. Everything's my fault. I can't get help because I'm a douchebag for having all these problems. It's my fault because I suck. And if I was worth my salt, I'm just living a lie because I make all this money and have these jobs, blah, blah, blah. But really, I'm a pig. And so if anybody knew who I really am, then they wouldn't like me and all that stuff. And so it's not okay to talk about. Is one of the problems, and it's getting better than it used to be 20, 30, 40 years ago when I was in the middle of all of it. But as sure as hell wasn't okay to talk about it then.
Right. Did you feel better, though, once you talked to someone about it?
It was just the beginning, because to start to talk, it didn't overcome in a heartbeat or all at once the feelings and the pile of baggage. It was just like the beginning. So you had to start somewhere.
Right. Absolutely. And
I went to a shrink. To start with. I started telling him stuff, and I was even sort of trying to control the way the conversations went because I was afraid to just be open and vulnerable. So the relief and the change came slowly.
That's something that we do here, or that we like to do here, is we talk about like male masculinity, being able to kind of, I guess, break down these stigmas of guys specifically not being able to talk about certain things or show feelings and emotions. We talk about like black males specifically not being able to do those things, or not even having the necessary outlets sometimes, as women have. So that's something that we definitely talk about heavily on this show, just to let people know that it is okay to talk about it. Like, even if no one else is, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to tell your male friends that you love them. It's okay to express yourself, in a way that, where you might feel like people are going to judge you, or, oh, he's soft, or this and that. Like, that's okay. That's fine. That's okay that they think that way, but for your own sake, to be able to get that out, have an outlet, whatever it may be. For each person is different, but whatever, just not to hold it in like the stigma has been for the last 100 years or so.
Totally agree with you. Now, I don't know if I answered your question on how I dealt with it. I dealt with it poorly. I stumbled through. I made mistakes. I hid them. I lied. I learned how to lie and hide, and just sort of manage my way through, burn down relationships, indulge in a lot of self-sabotage, create things, and then believe, well, I'm not supposed to have this much success, so I must need to burn this down kind of feeling. And so I made a lot of money. I lost a lot of money. I have 10 children. Some of them still won't talk to me. So I have a lot of opportunity and work to do there, but I view it as opportunity. And you talked about positivity in the relationship between that and perhaps having gone through the valley of the shadow of death, so to speak. And that is true. I think the thing that breeds the positivity is two things. As long as I'm breathing, I have opportunity. I'm optimistic because something can change. The future is not a projection of the past, and it is unwritten and blank. So as long as I'm breathing and I got up today, more stuff can happen that I didn't expect,
right?
That I didn't plan, and it might be good. So that's one reason for the positivity. And the other thing is I finally got rid of the idea that I have no control over my life, that somehow it is a result of all the crap going on around me, which is how I lived for a long time. I am at the mercy of fill in the blank, the government, the economy, my family, my upbringing, this, that, and the other. And when I finally realized that was crap, then I had the opportunity to take control for myself. So between learning that I had both the opportunity and responsibility to take control of my own life, and second, that as long as I'm breathing, I have opportunity, where I think is the connection for me to positive future outcomes.
It is interesting because you had so much success, but your the situation with your mom, at the beginning didn't hinder you from being successful, you know, but still you felt like you didn't deserve it because of your childhood, which is, but you know what? I can't even lie. I had similar, similar thoughts. Like, oh, I don't deserve this because I just don't feel, I just don't feel worthy because this other person in my life doesn't have this, and now I have it. Now I feel bad for having it, even though I work hard for it. You know.
And
So almost.
so go ahead. Go ahead. My bad.
No, I was just gonna say I most definitely understand where you're coming from that perspective, for sure.
So, and I'm on the other side of I've never had like any suicidal, depressional thoughts, to my knowledge, or any harm or hurting myself, and it's been primarily inspired by the feeling that, like, my family needs me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't even entertain the thought, because if I wasn't here, what would my family do? You know, so I know we talked about a lot of this stuff come up from, like you said, our upbringing and things of that, which can vary drastically. I know when I look at suicide from afar, I'll say, because I don't know anybody personally, to my knowledge, and that's not something that everybody talks about, have attempted or anything. So I guess looking at it from afar, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what. I guess what it stems from. Like, is it just not like you said, a feeling of not being worthy? Because I know people who grew up in stressful situations or abusive homes as kids, or just sometimes the inner city could just be, growing up could be extremely tough environment, etc. And yet, and this could be just that hard male exterior about not showing emotions and stuff like that. But to take the suicide route, growing up, I would say I was always like, man, that's a cop out, or that person was mentally weak and couldn't get over whatever stuff that they're dealing with, when there are people who are going through worse stuff, that from the outside that you see. So I've grown a little bit from that, but it's still, I guess where it stems from always seems to bewilder me, even to this day.
Let me share something with you. I attempted suicide twice. One time, and I'll tell you, one of the things that I did when I wrote this book, I decided I wanted to do something different besides write a book. So because I'm a musician, I wrote an album of music, 11 songs that tell the stories. And the name of the album is The Name of the Black. And I named it that for the reason that you're talking about. There comes a time when, and again, this whole dance takes place in your head. It's true. It's absolutely true. It takes place in your head. But there comes a time when you receive enough and you believe the input that you come to the place where you look in the mirror and you say, you've run out of excuses for what you do. You've run out of excuses for who you are. You can't lie anymore. You can't hide. And you look at yourself in the mirror, and the only thing you can feel and see is they're right. Every problem, every bad thing, every rotten thing that's gone in my kid's life, my ex's, all those things, they're right. It's me. There's no more excuse. There's no more out. And it gets to a place that there are no words for the feeling. The hate of self, the self-loathing is so great. There's no ability to describe it. And so I gave that feeling a name. And the name of that is The Name of the Black, because of the way that your soul feels: empty, hollow, vanished, no color, nothing. So when that came to me, I got on the internet. My favorite drug of choice at the time was mostly cocaine. But I looked up my body weight and I calculated the amount of cocaine one would have to ingest to kill me. And then I looked up how much alcohol it would take to kill me from alcohol poisoning. And then I realized and looked up the fact that when you mix cocaine and alcohol in the body, it creates cocaethylene, which is longer lasting and more lethal than either one of them individually. And I consumed intentionally enough cocaine and enough alcohol that either one of them should have killed me. So it was a calculated, intentional attempt to be done because of the name of the black. It was simply, there was no out, there was nowhere to face. I couldn't talk to anybody anymore. And that spawned the songs and all of that. But that was a reason. Hopelessness got to that intensity. Why I didn't die, I don't know. I know later I had a bunch of divine intervention and everything that helped set me on a path to get me out of this mode and completely change things, so much so that later, like a few months after that, when it had reached that period, I went from $3,000 a week cocaine, and I was making so much money that didn't matter, $3,000 a week to nothing in one day. Straight up, cold turkey, all done, we're finished, new life, walk away from all of it. And walk away from the jobs and walk away from everything and start all over. So that is a reason somebody does. That happened. And that's what, you get the point of despair where there's nothing, you believe there's nothing left. It's not true.
Right.
You believe it to the point where you see no way out.
So and it's so interesting because you put it a way that I haven't. I don't know. Like we talk about the arts and stuff, and so you're able to put it in a way where maybe some people are not, or it just doesn't resonate with me. But that's a very descriptive way of looking at it for me.
Yeah, I heard a counselor say. She said that once somebody decides to go through with the act of committing suicide, like there's nothing anyone can do to stop them because they have it made up in their mind. This is what they're going to do. So no matter what you say, you can't stop them. You know what I mean?
I had the interesting experience a few years ago to get a phone call from someone I did not know. This is after I was, on my recovery and doing well. And the recovery doesn't happen at once. I got sober in one day, but it didn't fix my depression and my attitude of my own feelings. That took some time and a lot of work. But anyway, I was having a conversation with this guy, and I was in Phoenix, and he was in New York City. And I never even found out how he got my phone number. I did find out eventually how he got my name, because it was through a mutual acquaintance. But anyway, we were talking for a while, and he was at the verge of suicide, and I did everything that I could, talked to him for a couple of hours, and encouraged him to go do some other stuff, and et cetera, et cetera. And I found out 2 weeks later that he had killed himself. And I went through the whole dance of wondering if I had done enough, and but because I wasn't in that state of mind anymore myself, I didn't blame myself or anything like that. But I thought I could hear it in his voice. He didn't threaten it at all, but he was just talking about his situation and his kids and his wife or ex-wife or soon to be ex-wife or whatever it was. I don't remember all the details now, and I did what I could at the time. But there's a level of despair, Byron, that you're talking about, where the lenses that you see yourself and your life through are so colored, so distorted, I guess is a better word, that you just can't see anymore.
So interesting, man. So in your opinion, and so in your line of work, I know you do, like I said, motivational speaking and things of that sort. Have you done? I know you wrote books, but like, have you spoken at suicide prevention awareness events in that a more traditional sense?
A little bit. I haven't done anywhere near as much as I would like to. I spoke at a virtual summit, 3 of them in the last year. One was suicide attempt survivors. One was recovering alcoholics. One was recovering depression. There's this woman that I know that organizes these summits. They're worldwide, and there's 20 to 30 speakers. And she's the one that also was the person that put that book together that I referred to, that I just finished a chapter in. And I don't usually do the chapter kind of books where everybody writes a chapter, but I did it for her because of the topic. It was overcoming heart blocks. And I asked her what that meant. She mentioned trauma, the trauma that people have that prevent them from being who they could be, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I have a little bit, but certainly not to the extent that I could or would. Specifically, for me, the suicide prevention is far more important to go from more than just don't do that to, okay, so do what instead? Like, what is that out? You got to that place of falling off the cliff, staring into what I call the name of the black, that hopeless, helpless situation. But it's like, okay, now what? Where do you go? What do you do? How do you not do that? How do you begin to disconnect those inputs and those feelings? How do you begin to take the power away from the external people, places, inputs that have led you, driven you, accompanied you, escorted you, whatever it is, to that place? You got to do something different or nothing's going to change.
I haven't had any bouts with addiction or anything, but I have family members that have, and I find that to be kind of the most crucial part is when you replace that thing that you're so used to doing, you have to replace it with something. Like, you have to fill that hole with something, hopefully something positive, and not, you know, going back to something negative. But like, I agree with you 100%. Like, it has to be, if not this, then what? Like, it has to be a what after that.
Absolutely.
Hey, so you know, I understand your situation, but what about the people who, you know, they get fired from their job and they come home, kill their family, then kill themselves? Like, what type of thinking is that, though?
I'm sorry, ask that again, Byron. I'm not sure I understood the question.
I said I understand your situation. You know, that's more clear cut to me. But the people who, you know, they get fired from their job, same day they go home and kill their family and then kill themselves. Like, how did they jump from so quickly into they just don't want to live anymore that fast, you know?
I don't know. I can't answer that question in the abstract. What I do know is, at least in my experience, and I'm not pretending to know everything by any stretch, is that isn't all there is. Them getting fired from the job is a last straw. There is a series, a string, a history, a pattern of other stuff that may be hidden, that may be pretended away, that may be lied about like forever. Like I would have called myself a pathological liar. I lied about everything. And so someone who knew me would have wondered what happened in that same way. They would have said, why? And the answer is, you didn't know what was going on. You had, and I would be speaking to them, you had no idea what was going on behind the scenes.
Right.
You had no idea. So when we see somebody go wacko and do something either to others or to themselves, I would, in my experience, there's a string of other things that we don't know, because it's rare that someone is actually happy and productive and then suddenly goes and explodes.
Right.
They might look it, they might pretend it. Someone might say, yeah, but they were such a nice guy. And the truth is, yeah, and you don't know X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and the rest of it.
That's why it's so interesting to me. Like Robin Williams is somebody that just stands out as somebody who, you know, was the ultimate jokester, trickster for such a long time. You know, award winners and you know, he's a legend on everybody's list, etc. But then you know, clearly he must have been fighting something, and who knows how long he had been, you know, fighting whatever inside, and then he finally lost the battle with it or whatever. The human mind is so intriguing to me in that way, that you can live two completely different lives at the same time. You could be dead and alive at the same time in the same brain. It's so intriguing to me how people are able to sustain both. Even like you said, being a functioning addict, like being able to sustain both lifestyles is an incredible feat of the power of the mind to me.
Well, it is, and it's certainly not something I would brag about having a master's degree in or something, a high level of proficiency at fooling everybody. But it's a skill that you develop like anything else. And what finally tears it apart is someone who's in the movie with you, a girl, a boy, a wife, a husband, stops playing the role. I'm done. I won't do this. I won't be part of this. I won't witness this. Or a tolerant employer. I had a guy who worked for me in one of the jobs that I had. I had lots of people work for me over the years, but this one fellow, I knew his wife had passed away some years before. And since that time, he was lonely and alone. And on and off, he'd had a drinking problem. And we knew it. We made sure that it didn't interfere very much. He didn't have a job that interfaced with people. And sometimes we knew that he came to work iffy and et cetera, et cetera. So we didn't go out and fire him, which we could have done, or tried to force him into rehab to do something with his age and with the situation he was in. But if we had, I don't know what would have happened. He's gone now, and he has since moved on, and he's passed away. But during the time he worked for me, we knew it. And I talked to the others about it, and we assessed what effect it had on his job performance and decided we were going to live with it at the time, because we had concerns that he didn't have any support structure, and it might be the thing that did he's fine, except not really.
Right.
For those that didn't know, right? He held this job down all these years, and et cetera, et cetera. And so he did it, and we, to that degree, enabled that. So as an enabler, if you say that, we allowed that to go on, not feeling like we didn't have the tools to really help him in a way that was valuable. We knew the source of his aloneness, of his loneliness. We knew what had happened, and he hadn't been able to cope with his wife's passing very well. And it had gradually gotten worse. And so what happens is things go on appearing okay as long as all the puzzle pieces stay in place.
Right.
Somebody or some puzzle piece says, I'm done, for any reason, the puzzle falls apart. And it doesn't fall apart gently, usually. It falls apart in a giant mess on the floor, and he might have gone and done something, we don't know.
Right.
But I certainly was, that wasn't the only time in my whole career that I was, in some place in that puzzle, either not in charge. In that place, I was in charge and could have done something. In other places, I knew about people over there that were whatever, right? And so it's always a question, wow, is it my place? Am I really helping them if I go X, Y, Z? I've had clients who've had kids, and I had one client as a coach. I was coaching him about his business. He ran a flooring and cabinet business, and he was doing well. He did well, but he wanted help with certain aspects of his business. So he came to me as a business coach. He was a client for a couple of years, and we helped him. I helped him do good, get his accounts receivable in order, renegotiate stuff with the suppliers, get better. His business got going on better, et cetera, et cetera. And then it turned out he was having trouble with his relationship. And so we worked on that for a while, et cetera, et cetera. And then one day after a couple of years, he came to me and he said, can you help my son? And I knew he had some kids, but I had never met any of them. And I said, I don't know. What's wrong with your son? What's he need help with? Well, it turns out he'd been a heroin addict for 2 years. And he left college, dropped out after his junior year. He'd been on the honors program, and something happened. I don't know if it was a conflict between his parents or whatever. His demons came up, and so dropped out of the honors program after his junior year, gone, had a girlfriend. He had a kid now, and he'd been a heroin addict for 2 years. And I said, well, does he want help? Well, yeah. So anyway, we had some long conversations with him. I brought him over, and because I was an ex-addict, I talked to him differently than somebody else might. But anyway, we got him on a path to go, and he went to a 90-day residential rehab, and he gave me everything he had, including all of his secret stashes, and that turned out really well. And he went out, and he's never used since, and he got a job, and yay, yippee, happy ending.
Right.
Okay. Another client I had who had a son, happened to be another guy, was on the street, and she kept enabling it by giving him money, because he'd say, "Oh, I'm going to die if you don't, da, da, da." And so I helped her make a choice to, what would have been considered tough love, stop enabling the situation. And I don't know where that went. And so there's different approach. I knew for a while, and he did okay for a little while, but today I can't tell you. The one I know and the other one I don't know, because that's been some years. But I don't even pretend to know what the last straws are or what will be the successful outcomes or not. Byron, in terms of your question, what makes somebody suddenly snap? It's a pile of other stuff.
Right.
I've never known a situation that went from 0 to 100. Really,
right. I think you're dealing with stuff like that at work. I think that's you see a lot of companies now have like those hotlines. It's maybe not the suicide prevention, but just if you need to talk to somebody about something or help getting your finances in order, just some kind of coaching that you can kind of call just to alleviate some kind of stressor that you got going on in your life. You see some companies offer, 3 or 4 counseling sessions throughout the year that, it's company paid for. So, if you need those resources, then, they're more than glad to kind of help in that way. I do feel like you are right, kind of being in a peculiar situation where, is it my place to really say something? Is it not being at work? I mean, of course, if it's your friend or somebody like that, then of course I would hope you would, do what's best for them. But something like that can be so personal, and it could always go the other way. Like maybe they're offended, and now that send them further off the deep end. Work always seemed like a peculiar place to step in or not step in. But I think having those resources helped tremendously. That something I didn't see 10 years ago in as many workplaces as I do now. So
well, I completely.
No, you got it. I was just talking about the outlet. That's all.
Yeah. I was a funny thing happened the other day. I did those songs that for that book, and I decided they're done now, and I finished them all, and they're produced and recorded and stuff. And I decided to do a concert to both tell the stories and to perform the songs. And I did the first one September 1st, which was like 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to do some more this year. But it was a weird thing. So I had invited, it was on Zoom, and so I had a bunch of people came, and it was doing good. And we got about a third of the way, maybe halfway through the show, and all of a sudden, a whole bunch of people jumped on the Zoom, like only not real people. It was like a denial of service hack, right? And so all of a sudden there were 10, 20, 30, 40 windows popped up, even though we had it set for, we had to let them in. Somehow they'd hacked their way around that. And that it was screaming loud noise and really like weird images, some of them violent, some of them porn, some weird stuff like that Vendetta guy's face, and then with these really loud soundtracks, just trashed the whole thing. So we had to shut the concert down.
Wow.
And, I've wondered, like, here I'm doing this stuff, and there was no charge for the concert. I was just doing it to, help and raise awareness and talk about that, tell the stories and whatever. And then this thing happened. And so you think about, like, what would drive that thing? Nobody that I knew at that time had ever even heard of a Zoom room being hacked like that,
right,
for any reason, let alone what. And maybe you know more about that or have heard about that. I had certainly never seen anything like that. And I've been using Zoom for coaching for years, like way before the Pandemic, I was Zooming before anybody knew what it was. But anyway, that happened like what, 10 days ago. And it was like, bah, the face. You know? Holy crap. So we'll do it again. But we're going to use one of these platforms. I think we're using Restream instead of StreamYard. But it was just a weird thing that happened like in the middle of that, right?
That is strange. I've heard of especially like classrooms being hacked in like the beginning, middle of the pandemic and stuff, but never like something like that. That sounds crazy. Especially come out of nowhere. That sounds insane.
Well, it turns out that I posted the link right before the concert on my Facebook page in case anybody wanted to join. And the idea that something like that would happen never crossed my mind. So I guess I have to be a little more careful and do some other stuff next time. But
internet always teaches lessons, man. Trust me, we go through it almost every week. It's always something. So I do want to turn toward more positive stuff and stuff that you've seen in your speaking engagements. But I want to get to Angel's comments. She said that she feels like it comes down to a lack of coping skills. And I just wanted your opinion on that, because I kind of feel similarly, where I don't know if coping skills, because that sounds too narrow to me, but just a lack of some sort of preparedness, whether it's from your environment or how you were raised in your household or whatever it is. I kind of feel like that's a basis of it, I suppose. And I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I would agree with her. Hey, let's define coping skills broadly. Let's pretend that it's anything that you need to get through life in a positive and productive way. And that might come from a book you read. It might come from a conference you went to. It might come from, grandma that used to teach you when you went to visit, say certain things. I got a friend that tells me his greatest mentor was his grandpa. He said he was a little bit rowdy as a kid, and I don't know the details of his growing up, but they sent him off to grandpa a lot. And so, he got some life lessons and skills from being there. And that, is harder and harder these days. Families are further apart. There's less structures around us. Schools certainly don't teach those things. And I know personally now, gratefully, in the positive vein that you're talking about, somebody I met the other day on a platform called Lunch Club, which is just a virtual get to know people platform that's run by AI, artificial intelligence. You put in some stuff and they match you just to meet people all around the world. I met a guy who's working on getting a program in high schools to teach, I'll call them coping skills because she did, that come right out of skills that you used to use in therapy. So if somebody's busted, like I was, and you go and they do certain things, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, all these big long words, but there's certain skills that they teach you. I know somebody now who's working to get some of that learning, that coping taught ahead of time. In other words, let's just teach this kind of process, discernment thinking, rational thinking, and critical decision making, and how to do that. Let's do that before it's busted, before somebody's busted and needs, quote, therapy to get fixed. Let's teach it as coping skills to get along in life and make decisions and do stuff before we're talking people off the ledge. And so I totally agree. And in the positive way, that's the whole point of the work that I do. I'm a coach. My life right now is dedicated to helping people in that positive way understand that there are new choices and to help whether they're busted or not. I don't work necessarily in addiction programs or suicide prevention programs. I work with anyone who's committed to ending their sort of lifelong journey with mediocrity. I mean, at different times in our lives, we all feel like we could do more, be more. I love that. Like these guys that I just started with writing books. Like they want to do something. They want to write a book to help whoever it is, somebody with something, right? And so that's absolutely all that I do in my coaching practice is helping those who have decided that they want more. Like get this one lady who's a professor at the University of Notre Dame, and she wants to quit that job because she doesn't feel like it presents her enough opportunity to do good. Wow. So I'm working with her to create a business, a bigger business. She already has some work in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion space because of the stuff that's happened in the last couple of years. And so I'm really excited about her work getting there. And she doesn't feel like she has enough opportunity as a business professor at where she's teaching now. And so she wants to create a company to do more. And she is in the process of creating growth there.
That's so cool, man. Being a coach and being able to see the positive, even if you took a positive person and made them more positive or gave them that confidence, that boost, give them something that you can send them off with, like that they could. I mean, I've seen some of your testimonials that you got on your website, and I've heard some of the things, and like I said, I even watched. I wish I could remember what it's called. You had like a whole intro. You came in. I think it got to be on your website. And he's like, hey, well, since y'all here, y'all mind if I practice? I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, I watched the whole thing, and it was just it was
that one. Yeah, that was a conference I was at, and I was pretending, of course. I was give a speech, and I was joking with the organizer, starting, "What? There's got to be some mistake," and so I talked about, "Don't die with your music inside."
He walked in the room like, people. I didn't know it was gonna be people here, like of course acting, but it was but it ended up being, don't die with some music inside, and that like to be able to send people off with that level of positivity, that's something that so not only are you doing good and putting good out, but that has to make you feel great inside.
I feel like I owe God, the world, as much as I can give between now and the last day I draw breath. That's a choice that I have made. I don't feel obligated. It's not like I used to have to prove. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. Nobody does. We just live with the story that we do. I have made a choice to do every bit of positive, uplifting, good, and growth that I can do until I no longer draw breath. That's why I'm in the middle of 6 books. One of them is a book called Forgiveness, A Journey of Courage to a Place of Peace and Power. Because I learned that if I choose not to forgive, I'm carrying the rocks. If I carry the grudge, somebody said it's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Like, I'm carrying the poison. I'm not doing that. I'm deleting that baggage. I'm emptying that basket. The rocks come out of my backpack. Why? Because I said so. Because I don't want to carry them anymore. Because I want to lift and I want to bless. And that's exactly what I do every day, all day long, from first breath to last breath. And I know that sounds weird, but that's true.
Where do you find the energy? How are you writing music and doing concerts and writing chapters and other people's books, and you're in the middle of 6 books yourself? Where do you find the energy and that's opportunity to do this stuff, man? Conferences, everything.
Well, and that's, I'll tell you how. Some of this is going to make real clear and easy sense, and some of it's going to sound a little weird, but I'll tell you anyway, because you ask. If any of us are going to do a good job at anything, we have to prepare. So we just, the last few weeks we saw the Olympics. Somebody going to the Olympics to prepare, they prepared a lot before they hit that pool. Right. They did a lot of swimming, a lot of running, or a lot of the Paralympics, either one. Those just finished a few days ago. Those guys too, my jaw drops every time I see some of the people overcome those obstacles and doing that stuff. Okay, so it's not weird for us to sit here and say, wow, they prepared, they practiced a lot, et cetera, et cetera. You know what we don't do? We don't practice being good at life. We don't practice being the best we can every single day. So that's what I do. I have what I call a morning ritual, and it's 2 hours long. And I don't start my first conversation, my first meeting, my first day, or anything in the day until I've done that preparation. And that preparation is an intentional process, which I'll share with you in a minute. But the whole point of it is to prepare me to be that best person I can be today, to be the gold medalist, if you will, at who I'm trying to be in the world. So how I get to energy is I get up every single day and I do that preparation and I adjust it to make it more effective and see how it works from time to time. And here's what it is. For me, I use the acronym SPEM, S-P-E-M, which stands for spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental. And so I intentionally prepare me as a being spiritually. That might be meditation, it might be prayer, it might be both, it might be reading sacred literature, whatever it is. But it's to reaffirm and live into the connection that we all feel, sometimes stronger and sometimes weaker with the greater presence. Physical is a stuff that I do. Even if I'm going to go work out or play sports or do something later, I do some exercise on the floor. I did martial arts a lot in my life. So for me, it's that. But it could be yoga, it can be stretching, it can be whatever you want. But it's to prepare and pay honor to the body, the container that I have to hold the spirit that I am. The E stands for emotional, and that includes all my relationships. So I'll get my phone and I'll think of 5 or 6 people that I want to connect with, that I want to nurture a relationship with, or I want to repair something that's broken. And I'll reach out to them and send a message of love, encouragement, positivity, kindness on purpose. And the M is mental. I've got, and you can't see my desk, I've got 20 books I'm in the middle of reading. And so I'll read 2 or 3 or 4 chapters in a book. Doesn't matter which one. And it doesn't have necessarily to do with business, all kinds of stuff, from quantum physics to who cares? But it's to keep my mind active. And so by exercising the spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental part of life every day, and I do it deeply, so it takes a couple hours. But when I teach clients this, I start with 4-10, so 40 minutes, 10, 10, 10, 10. And we work on creating a ritual so that they can prepare themselves to be not who I think they should be, who they want to be.
Right.
Who do you want to be? Okay. And they tell me, and I say, fine, how does that person show up? I want to be the best podcast host. I want to be, okay. What would prepare you to be that? Let's figure out how to do that. And then every week we talk, how's your ritual going? What are you doing? Which part are you doing well at? Which part are you avoiding? Why are you avoiding? What's the story behind that avoidance? Like, what are you telling yourself instead? I mean, you wanted to do it. It's not me.
Right.
You don't want to change the goal into something you do want to, so that you can keep your word to yourself. Screw everybody else. Keep your word to yourself first. So that's exactly where I get the energy. I go find it, cultivate it, build it.
Build it. Yeah, make it. Right. Create it. I love it. That's so cool, man. And you're 100%, you're 100% right. You practice for a lot of stuff. You do a lot of training for a lot of stuff, but not about living your life, like how to be the best at your life. Like, no one does that. Like, no one wakes up with a mental, like, you know what? How can I build this life of mine to be the best? Of course, you want stuff, or you want to be the best at things. But how do you just have the best life? That's a great way. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
It's like, yeah, you practice for everything else, but nobody ever said to you practice at, you can practice at life, man. Hey, but you know what? If I don't work out, like, don't feel right. I can't get through my day, with all the stuff I have to do if I don't work out, and I feel like trash if I don't work out. Like the past 2 weeks, I worked out twice, and I just been feeling tired, no energy to do what I got to do.
Well, you just answered Emmanuel's question then.
Yeah, you did.
How do you have that energy? Well, you figure out what gives you energy, and you do that. You figured out what gives you insight and intuition and inspiration, and you do that. You figure out what strengthens your relationships with whoever you want them strengthened with, and you do that. You figure out what makes your body good, and it's for you, it's working out, so you do that. And when you don't, you go, dang, I know I didn't do that, because you feel it. Yeah. So that's exactly 100% right.
I'm leaving my jobs, man. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to do something to make me happier. That's crazy. It's so simplistic, yet without being told that or being told to just be aware of these things, then you don't even think about it. Like, but that's simplistic. Like, what gives you energy, so do that. And when you don't do it, you won't have energy. Pretty simple, right? But if you're not told in the same some people need to hear stuff in a certain way for them to catch it. And I can see you providing that for so many people. That's a great way. What you just explained is incredibly simple, yet if I didn't hear it in that way, then it wouldn't make sense to me. You're right.
Tell you a funny story. The beginning of the pandemic, a year and a half ago, somebody, when the shutdowns were just starting in March of 20 to a year and a half ago, somebody called my wife and said, does Kellen have a podcast? Because they knew I'd done motivational speaking, and and she said, yeah. And then she came downstairs and said, we have a podcast. And so in March of 2020, I started a daily podcast just for that reason, to be full of help and love and motivation. 15 minutes long, called Your Ultimate Life. And I just recorded episode 482.
Wow.
Yesterday. Same thing. It's not a business thing. It's to do just what you said. I'm going to give as much energy, motivation, love, ultimate encouragement as I possibly can. And so now I have 482 episodes of a podcast. Same reason. Every day, 15 minutes.
Just when I think it can't be more, like you pull out energy restore and line something else. So that's amazing, man. That's so amazing. Let me see. Let me catch up with some of the comments. Just as we were talking, people were saying stuff, and let's just see if we can run through these. Let's see. Regina, who has since she left the show, I think she had to go for the day, but she said, I was trying to be so pleasing, I made myself crazy to where I was ready to snap. I realized I can't please everyone. I need to be happy for myself. I'm so much better now. And Regina, somebody had shared with the show some of the trauma she went through in her childhood, with her mom and growing up before. And just from the stuff that she's, shared with us, like I said, we haven't talked about suicide or anything like that, but that background, like Byron was saying earlier, that's a clear-cut background of why people would be, suicidal, different types of abuse and stuff. Your camera's going crazy, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm about to leave one back because I don't know.
Okay. So it just manifests, different way, different for different people.
I love what you said about, she said to have to make herself happy. Here's the thing. Sometimes we're taught that if we take care of ourselves, we're somehow being selfish, that we should not do that. And that is completely wrong. There's a difference between caring for yourself and being self-indulgent, where all you do is satisfy every whim and every wish that you want and all that stuff. Caring for yourself is critical and important, or you can't care for anybody else very well.
Right.
It's like someone that says, well, I don't feel good. I work sometimes with coaches I'm training them, and they say, well, I love helping people, but I have a hard time charging money to coach people. And the answer is, okay, well, good luck making a business out of that. Right. You're not going to stay in business very long. And so caring for your own needs at an appropriate level, sure, there's a level where you can be self-indulgent, but caring for yourself and taking care of yourself is critical. And so, Regina, if you listen to this back, 100%, you must care for yourself. You must have your cup full and then serve the heck out of everybody around you, but do it from the saucer. Like if your cup is full, it runs over on the saucer. So serve from the extra, the overflow on the saucer. I got a friend who lives in New York City. He's a coach, and he says all that all the time, serving from the saucer. And I love that analogy, because if you keep your cup full, then you got stuff to serve with and you never run out.
That's when somebody says something profound, or I don't want to call it profound, but say something that like that everyone can resonate with. I feel like I got a good grip of the audience, and Byron 20-some years now. That we call it like dropping gems. Like that's a gem right there, because you always hear, you can't pour from an empty cup, but never serve from the saucer like that. Like serve from the overflow. Keep your cup full. That's a gem right there. I don't know what else to call it. That's dropping gems right there, man.
Well, good. And there's nothing, in fact, it's right to serve yourself, to fill your own cup. That's what that whole 2-hour ritual I do in the morning is to make me the best that I can be. And it isn't so I get to feel cool. It's so that I can do a good job serving those that I, have committed to serve. I mean, like nobody makes me take a client or do anything else. I spent an hour and plus writing a long email to the people that were in that class yesterday, encouraging them, and they've already paid me. So it's not like I'm getting more money. They're part of the class. They bought it, but I want them to feel good about what they're doing, about their own mission, about who they're going to serve, about the book they're writing, about who might read it, about the difference it might make. So I spent a bunch of time reflecting back to them what we done yesterday and making sure they knew that I was behind them and that I was going to help them and that I was going to write another book along with them. And so I said, I'll do a book during this 90 days too, so that I would be sharing the journey with them. And does that mean I got more stuff to do? Yes. So what? I'll figure it out.
Hey, so do you feel that 2-hour ritual helps you every day? Let's say if you didn't do it, because I know you won't miss I know you won't miss a day, but let's say hypothetically, if you did miss it, do you think it'd just like you wouldn't be able to complete?
I used to be spotty, Byron, when I was learning to do this. I rebelled against it. I didn't want to get up in time. It means I have to get up 2.5 to 3 hours before my first meeting. It means a lot of stuff. So there were days when I didn't do it. I didn't do it well. I skimped. I pretended. I faked different pieces, and I had exactly the same experience. Excuse me, that you described. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel prepared. I didn't feel connected. I didn't feel inspired. I didn't feel like I'd done what I could. And I started noticing a correlation between the days that I did it and the days that I didn't, and how I performed and what happened. So I don't miss it now. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, and it's the frozen north, so it's minus 40 up here sometimes. Every winter there's a week of minus 40, right? And it's not all winter, but just a week. I would no sooner run outside in the snow naked in minus 40 than I would miss my morning ritual now. But it wasn't like that always. I had to work, adjust it, change it, play with it, forgive myself, fall on my face, make excuses, get back up, recommit. And the only driver was me, because I want that.
Right. So good, man.
Yeah, it sucked when I don't do it, and I don't miss it now, but I used to. So yeah.
Let me see. Regina said, this was in response to me when I said it's a cop-out. I was younger, I guess. She said it isn't a cop-out. It's hard to cope in your brain. You feel the people around you are better off without you. No one will miss or need you. I then got a tiny glimmer of light that changed my mind. So yeah, and Regina go back and watch the show, so I'm sure she'll come back to our response and stuff. But yeah, no, I just felt like Angel said earlier that it was like a lack of coping skills, and growing up, that's all I had. Like that was the basis of me growing up, was how to cope with the challenges of some utilities being off, or the challenges of just being Black in America sometimes, like just those coping skills that you deal with. Like me and Byron, we talk all the time about how we grew up in one area of the town, but we kind of both went to school in like super suburbs or whatever. And just the contrast, seeing that every day, the contrast in kind of living in poverty and then going to like the luxury of schooling and stuff, just how it could, I don't know, how I guess we were both able to use the skills of, people having stuff and you not having stuff just at a young age. This is kind of how we grew up. So yeah, it's just lack of coping is how I felt about it, like Angel said.
Well, that's something that has troubled me a lot. I don't pretend to fully. I've had lots of clients that were people of color. I ran a recording studio for a long time, and I guess probably 75% of my clients were people from South Phoenix. I had it in Phoenix for a long time. In South Phoenix, it was mostly Black folks, and I had lots of them come in the studio and doing all kinds of different things. But I didn't understand the pain, the struggle, the inequities, the thing, and that you, both of you, may obviously have dealt with and gone through. And so one of the deals I had with one of my clients was that I was coaching, who was Black. I made a deal with him that I would pay them a certain amount of money, and they would coach me on that experience. Every experience they had where they experienced the kinds of things that are part of our growing up crap in America and the wrong things that have happened. So that was something that was on my mind a lot. And I asked for that. And so I paid somebody to coach me so that I could at least begin to have a better appreciation and to tell me everything that they experienced day to day, week to week. Like, what are the things that you're seeing, feeling, hearing? I learned a lot doing that and gained certainly not a perfect by any stretch, but a much better appreciation and understanding, empathy, feeling, love, desire for change, all that stuff, because I asked for that experience and I wanted it. I wanted to know, I wanted to understand, because I knew I didn't. And so that was something I did for my own growth, because I wanted to feel and understand that better than I thought I did.
No, that's we talk about it all the time, man, about whether it's different races or different classes, different people from different countries having like a conversation is what no, you had to pay for yours. So, it's a little bit different than most people, but having a conversation, spending time with different people that for your own growth, you know what I'm saying? Maybe not necessarily, you feel like you can change the world, but just for yourself, so you can understand just the differences. And that education alone is worth the time or the money to get those experiences. I think it's super important.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, the same fellow that did the cup from the surf from the saucer thing right after the George Floyd incident, he started a group where there were conversations about those kinds of things for several weeks, and he had 50 to 100 people in a Zoom room. And because we're friends, he happens to be a fellow of color. He lives in New York, but he invited me to be part of that, and that was really valuable. And I think it was him doing that sparked my choice to then go find a situation where I could, and I wanted to pay for it. And the reason I wanted to pay for it is I wanted them to feel like it wasn't doing me a favor. I wanted to be taught in the most rigorous way possible so I could learn the most in the shortest period of time. So I said, okay, so I want you to teach me this. I want you to help me understand as best you can so that I can see things as they are or closer to as they are.
Well, if anybody listen to this later, you need a coach, I am available. And we could do it very clean and PC, or we can go very raw and descriptive, but I'm available. Epiphany Media is available. All right, so the rest of the comments, they're just saying, great show. Thanks for the information. Angel did ask, what's the name of your podcast again? And then somebody else said that they needed a morning routine. I know you said you're 10-10-10. Now, I don't know if you've recorded that. If that is on the podcast, you can give out that episode, and I'll link it later so people can listen to it.
The name of the podcast is Your Ultimate Life, and my name, Your Ultimate Life with Kellen Flukiger, and you'll see my beautiful smiling face on different forms on the cover of all the podcasts, right? So on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Deezer, Amazon, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I'm glad, Angel. Glad you enjoyed it. Anyway, so that's the name of the podcast, Your Ultimate Life. And it's 15 minutes a day, and it's all about I define it. An ultimate life, I define, and I understand everybody's going to define it differently, is having a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy that we create by serving others with our divine gifts. So that's how I define the ultimate life. And there are several episodes about creating a morning ritual. There are many episodes. It's only 15 minutes. So, and because I'm every day, I took it apart and talked about it and presented many different ways that you could do it and different ideas about how to create it. The important thing isn't to get a formula and go do that. The important thing is to say, I'm going to do that, boom, and then go fool around with it until you find one that makes you feel connected, energized, empowered. And if there's some piece of it you just hate, figure out in yourself why you hate it. Is it something you don't really want to do? Is it some piece? Because it all needs to come from you. Like it starts with you declaring who you want to be. I've said, I want to be a person who empowers, lifts, and blesses everybody I meet. So then I say, okay, what do I need to do to be that guy? Every morning, I need to be the best that I can be of that guy. Well, it's what I said I want to do. If I said I wanted to be something else, then the preparation would be different.
That's so good, man.
It's crazy how you turn that black void into like a shiny, bright light of positivity. Especially as soon as you wake up in the morning, you have it's like you trained your mind to think differently as soon as you wake up. So I think that had a big impact. I'm gonna have to use it. I'm using it. Working right now. I'm using
it. And you're right. I'm glad you said that, Byron. You've caught on to something really important. Your mind is trainable. So I used to wake up thinking about whatever I thought up. I now wake up, and the first thing that occurs to me is, who am I going to serve today? What am I grateful for? And I'm in the attitude of gratitude. Gee, that rhymes. And prayer and all that stuff at the instant I wake up. And it's not magic, and it's not because I got some weird antenna in my left ear. It's training. It is a choice to do that and do it and do it. And so guess what? Your body and your mind complies. You wake up the way you train yourself to wake up. You're exactly 100 million% right.
That's so crazy. I love shows like this where I consider myself to be smart, well-rounded. I would say not necessarily smart, but well-rounded. But I love shows where I can I can take this and this away, a different perspective. I love it, man. I don't know about you, but I love shows like this.
Yeah, it's different from what we usually do, but it's kind of hard to get people to come on, and share their experiences. So for you to be able to come on and talk about, things like this in your life, I must definitely commend you.
Well, I'm happy to do it. My commitment, the person I've chosen to be is the most uplifting, encouraging. I think of coaching as being in the people encouragement business. That's why I put this picture up here of this dude meditating on some hilltop. People ask how I get as much done as I do. And the answer is I spend a couple hours meditating. And they say, well, if you spend a couple hours meditating, how do you have that time? The answer, that practice right there creates time. You do things faster, you do them better. There's less mistakes. There's less fooling around with decisions. I can spend 2 hours meditating and get 4 hours back every day. I know it doesn't make sense and the math doesn't work, but it's a fact.
No, but if you had the energy and the mental resources to be able to pull from that, then you have infinite amount of time as long as you do the stuff that you have to do for yourself. Like even the adage that you can't pour from an empty cup. But if you keep yourself full, if in the morning you wake up on a half a cup or 3/4 of a cup, but you manage to fill your cup every single morning, so you always have something to pour from, whatever your overflow is, then it creates that extra that you need the extra 2 hours or 4 hours that you need to get stuff done. That's an amazing point of view. It's an amazing way to look at it.
So what I would really love is if you guys, whatever you take from this, would try some of it and then tell me what happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No.
Tell me what happens. I would be really curious. Try something. Try it for a week. Try it for 2 weeks. Tell me what happens.
I'm down with that. And that goes for you guys in the audience as well. People that listen to this later, be sure to do it. And, you guys know how to contact us and let us know. And Kellen, you're always welcome back. I definitely want you to plug all of your stuff. I don't know how many of the 6 books you want to talk about. I was trying to get all the information from your assistant so I can list it on the screen, but that went down.
If anyone's interested, all you have to do is put my name in on Amazon. Just make sure you spell it right, because otherwise you won't find me. You can Google my name, and there's only 2 Kellen Flukigers in the world of 8 billion. So you're not going to confuse me with somebody else. The other one's my oldest son. So if you put my name in on Amazon, you'll see the podcasts, or on Apple, Your Ultimate Life. I have a YouTube channel called Ultimate Life Formula, but it's a single message. And it is about you today, no matter where you are, have the opportunity to create, give back, and live your ultimate life. It doesn't depend on outside. Happiness is a choice from within you. I could have nothing. And I've been through times when I had so much money, I didn't know what to do with it. I've been through times when I've been broke and was worried about rent and all the rest. And the quantity of things that I had was not a lever on the scale of happiness. I thought it used to be. When I was growing up, I thought getting up in the company, making all this money, doing all that stuff. And when I had it, that's when I was the most miserable. So I'm not saying it's not fun to have stuff. Okay. It's fun to have stuff. Right. Yeah. I had a nice microphone here. Yay. It's fun to have stuff, but it's not happiness. You can never get enough of what you don't need, because what you don't need won't satisfy you.
Just going to go ahead and write that. Just going to write that down.
Hey, okay. One last question. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. What albums did you work? Because you mentioned off air that you worked on what did you say? 4 different groups albums or something. What did you work on?
Many groups albums. I said something about charting #1 on Billboard. I was in a very large vocal group called Millennial Choirs and Orchestras, and that was from 2009 to 16. Well, even last year, so for 10 years. And 4 albums that they put out. They're in the classical genre, and it's large choir stuff. They charted #1 on Billboard. So I was a member of a choir that had that distinction. Plus, I did a bunch of stuff with A&M Records, which is a label that like Janet Jackson in the old days and stuff used to work on when I ran the studio in Phoenix. So people from Hollywood came over, and old songs, nothing recent, but and there was an old song called Finally, which was an R&B hit for a long time. That gal was in the studio, and that kind of stuff. The producer that did that is a friend of mine, and he worked in the studio a lot. So not recent hits. I haven't been trying to do that, except the choir that I was in is very recent, just in the last few years.
Byron's going to come to you and ask you to produce his records from now on. That's so good. Kellen, we're gonna end the show, and then we're gonna come right back to you. But I do want to thank you for sure, 1,000,000% for coming on and talking with us and dropping gems, as we put it. Everybody in the crowd and the audience, they definitely appreciate you coming on, and I hope that they really go and check you guys out. As you guys know, this is our suicide prevention show, so I hope that if you guys need help or want to talk to somebody, that you guys take advantage of some of these resources that are out here. Google got literally everything you need. And Kellen, we just want to thank you for joining us, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, y'all. Great show.
Another great show on the boat.
Oh man. So we don't want to hold you guys. We don't want to have Kellen on hold for long, but I want to thank all of you guys for joining us live. People that listen to the podcast later, I want to thank you guys for joining us. Be sure to share this for us and all of your groups and people who may need it. Definitely be sure to check out all of Kellen resources, all of his stuff. If you took something away from this, definitely try to introduce some of it to your life. And if you are if you're able to use it, definitely let us know how it worked out, because we want to be able to report back and just see how it all goes. Like he said, even he started out spotty with his morning routine, and then he got it together. Now he wouldn't dare miss it. And training your brain to do stuff like that is important. So we appreciate you guys for joining us.
For sure. And also, if you're feeling any other feelings, like you're going down that, are you seeing this black? You're going towards that black hole, dial that 1-800 number. What is it? 1-800-273-TALK. Well, definitely dial that number, and try to get some help. Other than that, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And sharing is going to be very important in the next 2 weeks. So most definitely share. But yeah, it's been a great show, and all I gotta say is remember to own your own.
Looking forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday for politics. Looking forward to the next episode of Let's Get Takeout on Fridays, and of course, we will see you guys next week for this thing we do right here. Another new episode of Epiphany Media Podcast. So you guys stay safe out there. Salute to the city as always, and we will see you guys soon.